then some remarks about where we go from here. First of all, what is at stake, and why have I been basically on the stump for 5 to 6 years, traveling all over this country, testifying and speaking against Common Core? As Donna told you, I was one of the 5 people on the Common Core Validation Committee who did not sign off. I was the only English language arts standards expert. One of the other people who didn't sign off was the only mathematician, Jim Milgram from Stanford University. And you have to start immediately asking questions about who are all these other people and who were the people who were chosen to be on Common Core's standards development committees and also their standards writers. We have no public information because all private organizations developed and funded Common Core, and to this day we don't have access to their private records. But what is at stake here in Massachusetts? And I think you can easily see what I was able to get as 2 charts from NAEP. You can see where this black bar is. This is a list of all the states. And before 92, before the Ed Reform Act of 93, we were about 1/3 of the way down. After the standards that I helped to revise or develop were implemented, as well as some other things I will mention, here is what happened by 2007 on the NAEP. We are at the very top of all of the states, and we are considerably ahead of the next few states. This is what is at stake today. We had standards that helped to propel us to the top before Common Core came down the pipe. Once we have tests based on Common Core, we'll never be able to tell where we are because all the other indices have been adjusted or aligned to Common Core. I have a few of these charts, one on each side, for state legislators who might be interested to see the before and after. Now, what led to our being among the top states? Now, this and being at the very top in 2007, and we have stayed at the top. In other words, we had lasting gains that kept us at the top until just recently, when we've begun in grade 4 to slip a little bit. We're still at the top, but we're not as much ahead as we used to be. The standards that I helped to revise or develop were also used for several other major factors, and all together they got us there. First of all, the standards were used for teacher training. They were used for teacher licensure tests. They were used for criteria for professional development workshops. They were used by teachers in our schools for their own classroom curriculum. And finally, they were used as part of MCAS. So all those uses of the first-class standards we had helped to put us there, because I was coordinating all of that and making sure that the very first-class standards we had were being used in all the right places to make sure that if we were going to try to raise everybody's achievement, which was our goal at the time, then we needed to make sure that we had a stronger teacher corps, because teachers cannot teach what they do not know. So if you want higher standards taught, you must make sure your teachers know the subjects they're teaching, because it's the only thing we know from research about what makes for an effective teacher. Now, who was at that time, when I was in the department, 99 to 2003, involved in approving what I did? First of all, Commissioner David Driscoll, who some of you may remember or know. He was the one who hired me, who also approved At that time, the chairman of the board was James Pizer, who is now Secretary of Education, who was on the board at the time. Now Governor Charles Baker, he was on the board. So people who are now in very high offices were all part of my stars in my heaven to make sure that the things I thought we needed to do were approved and agreed to by all those key people. They are familiar with everything I did. And at that time, all approved them because while we didn't know this was coming, we all agreed that focusing on content knowledge and making sure that we were trying to improve everybody's academic achievement was the way to go. So that was what was happening in the Department of Ed from 99 to 2003. Then, in 2009, Common Core began as a project. I got onto the validation committee. The validation committee was charged with making sure that Common Core standards were internationally benchmarked. That means comparable to the best that are out there in high-achieving countries, mainly those in South Asia. That Common Core standards were research-based, so far as we knew from what we knew of the research. And since I had been a reading researcher by training, I knew what the research was in all areas of the curriculum. And we also wanted to make sure that the standards were rigorous. Professor Milgram and I, as I mentioned, were two of the 5 people who would not sign off. We were the 2 content experts in our own areas who knew that Common Core standards were inferior to what we had, at least here in Massachusetts and also in California, where Professor Milgram had been very involved in developing math standards used in California for K-12. So he knew all about K-12 math standards. We were the 2 people who knew the most and then refused to sign off, and yet it didn't make any difference because there was $64 billion in the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to play with, and they have been busy spending the money to promote the development of Common Core, to disseminate it, and to pay off all the organizations they can to promote it, support it, and implement it as best as they can. And it's awfully hard to fight $64 billion. Maybe it's down to 63 by now, but that still leaves a lot of money for someone to play with who thinks he knows what's good for all children in this country, particularly other people's children, since his own children go to a non-Common Core-based school, the best private school in Seattle that has a classical curriculum. And it's just interesting to think that the people behind Common Core would not expose their kids to it. So let me move on to some of the basic flaws in English and in math. And you may or may not have some of this in your handouts. I'm not sure what's in your handouts. But you can easily find out by going to my homepage at the University of Arkansas, where I went 2007, was there for over 5.5 years, where I have testified and put all my testimony on my homepage, which you can Google by just saying, Googling Sandra Stotsky, Arkansas, and it's the first item that will come up, or one of the first 2 items. Scroll down and you'll see everything I've been saying when I testify to state legislatures all over the country, because the first question is, what is Common Core? They don't know because they were bypassed, and that was deliberate, as happened here in Massachusetts. Deliberately, there were 4 groups bypassed when Common Core was introduced and passed by state boards of education, governors, and commissioners of education in 2010 when the final versions of the standards were released, June 2010. I was on the state board at the time, so I remember these dates. But they deliberately bypassed 4 hugely important groups. The main one was parents. Those parents didn't have a clue about what was going to happen in their kids' school system. The second group were school committee or school board members. Most of them in most states had no idea what their state board of education or Department of Education or Commissioner of Education, what they were doing by voting to adopt and implement Common Core. I was told in this state that the day after the state board adopted Common Core, it sent around a little courtesy note to local school committees to tell them what it had done. So that was how they found out. So you have parents who didn't know, local school committees and boards who didn't know, teachers who didn't know. They were as much in the dark as parents. And then you had state legislators themselves, because it was very deliberate, as Gates has indicated in a column that was published in the Washington Post in an interview, that they didn't want to involve deliberations about Common Core deliberately. So state legislators were bypassed. All they're good for is to pay for the bills and to appropriate money for technology needs of the testing that is going to be required. There's a huge amount, and it's growing all the time. A huge amount of money is needed for the testing for Common Core. We are part of a testing consortium called APR152015. That's an acronym for its full name. But Smarter Balanced is the other major testing consortium funded by the USDE, which was working together with the people developing Common Core. USDE wasn't developing the standards, but it was working in tandem with them. So they weren't just innocent bystanders. Whatever they were doing is actually, in the views of many people, lawyers, unconstitutional, but nevertheless, that's what they were doing. Math. What are the problems with math? As Professor Milgram has said, and you can access this 6-page and 13-page critique on his website or on other websites. In the lower grades, the standard algorithms or the basic arithmetical operations for doing the 4 major basic arithmetical operations, those conventional methods are delayed. So by middle grades, according to Professor Milgram, our students will be about 2 grades behind students in our high-achieving competitive countries. You've got to accept that what's going to happen under a Common Core math curriculum. That will affect science as well. As you know, science piggybacks on math. That's K7. Secondly, as Professor Milgram says, part of the problem with Common Core's math is it doesn't allow students to complete Algebra 1 until grade 9 or 10. And in our high-achieving competitors, they make sure that by grade 7 and 8, all middle school children have completed algebra and geometry in a combination. So our kids are several grades behind all the way starting in middle school on. And then the third major problem is that he does not find the standards that we need for getting to STEM majors in college. Now, this is a serious problem of deception, because one of the supposed goals of having national standards was to increase the STEM pipeline. By STEM, I mean science, technology, engineering, and math. And if there are standards missing that your high school math and science department don't put in, then your kids are not going to be able to have the opportunity to be prepared for the freshman math course in one of our 12 or 13 engineering colleges. never mind regular colleges for a STEM major, which would be in any area of science, technology, computer science, any area of engineering, mathematics, economics, finance. A lot of areas now require a lot more math and science than 50 years ago. But instead, if your school system follows only a Common Core math curriculum, it will end with a very weak, or Algebra 2 light, as mathematicians refer to it. That you need to check with your own math departments, ask them how they are handling the missing standards in Common Core's math. If they don't even know what they are, that's another problem. 5 more minutes. Okay. Now, ELA. Major problem with ELA is that what we have are skills, not content standards. And I have indicated on pages that I have made available what a real content standard is. For example, this is one we had in grade 9 and 10, put there by our own English teachers. Analyze character, structure, and themes of classical Greek drama and epic poetry. Sounds esoteric, but it meant either the Iliad, the Odyssey, or the Aeneid in grade 9 and 10. And what it also meant was that by high school, teachers would expect kids to do high school level reading. And what is going to happen under Common Core? We don't know, because Common Core has only skills like find the main idea with supporting evidence, which could be applied to the Three Little Pigs or to Moby Dick. There's nothing to indicate literary knowledge or historical knowledge. So we have a problem with the type of standards they are. They're not real standards, they're skills. Plus the fact that Common Core wants more of something it calls informational text and less literary text. They will say, no, 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 we're not touching the literature curriculum. We just want more of something called information. Well, the school day is the same. So if you increase one, you have to decrease the other. There is no way you can increase one without decreasing the other. So having more informational text means less literary text, less opportunity to learn to read between the lines for analytical and then critical thinking, which is what English teachers always did. Where do we go from here? I just have maybe 2 minutes left at this point. I know that one of the decisions to be made by the current State Board of Ed is whether to adopt PARCC, PARC tests, and get rid of the MCAS altogether except for those students in grade 10 who need to take an MCAS in grade 10 because of the graduation requirement. Well, one of the things to do, and I am just beginning to suggest this, is that we need to keep MCAS based on its pre-2007 standards. If that's what we want, then we need to keep MCAS in grade 10 and below, but based on the pre-2010 non-Common Core standards, if we want to at least get our kids within competing distance of international competition. Why will this matter? Because we do have an international economy, and there are attempts to have foreign students and foreign PhDs come to this country to work because we don't have a large enough supply of them. Well, the reason we don't have a large enough supply is that Common Core is about developing semi-literate truck drivers, not to get people in STEM. Nothing wrong with educated truck drivers, but you do need to have some of the engineers who speak English in this country, and they're not going to come from Common Core's math standards. So my suggestion is maybe any one of these bills could help that you have before you, but you can also think about how to preserve the use of MCAS led to this historic achievement and enduring gains for all students, not just high achievers, but for low achievers. This is an average that they're getting here, they're seeing. So you want to be able to have pre-2010 standards used for the MCAS as opposed to unproven standards that will lower the academic achievement of your children by about 2 grades worth. Maybe you don't care. Maybe there are enough representatives and others who don't care or choose to believe what they've been told about workforce needs. They need to get more information, and I think I will end here. Donna.
Thank you. Before I open it up to questions, I have Senator Jalen to say a few words, then Representative Orwell to say a few words, and then we have our student, Lee, who will say a few words. So just hold on to your questions for a couple minutes. Senator, please.
Thank you, and thank you all for being here. I just want to let you know that when you talk to your representative senators, they can still sign on to Senate bills. So the bills that are still offered by senators, people can sign on until the hearing. So that gives you something to ask for. My bill does not ask for a pause on CART, but it does put a pause on the hammer. The reason people are compelled to teach to the test, to follow the Common Core, and to prep kids for PARC is the hammer is there in the hands of the Commissioner of Education. At the same time that we adopted Common Core in Massachusetts, in order to meet Race to the Top, we also adopted a system of 5 levels. And if you get into level 4, the commissioner can run your school. And if you get into level 5, he can get somebody else to run your school. So it's all about power going up and not being at the grassroots level. I won't talk a lot more about it. My bill would put a pause of 3 years on using standardized testing to grade schools and districts, and then to have consequences for it.
We have the bill number.
There's no bill number. It's Senate docket 730. There's little notes over there if you want to pick them up. But just to explain, this is a good time. Tell your legislators this is a good time to take a break from the standardized testing regime. This year, kids are taking 3 different kinds of tests. It's not just MCAS and PARC. It's 2 kinds of PARC. How can you compare kids taking PARC on paper and pencil with kids taking it on a computer? It's not the same. I've done it. Probably a lot of you have done it. It's not the same. So how can you judge schools by 3 different standards and mix them all together in a formula that no one understands? This is not a good time to be punishing districts based on their standardized tests in 3 different forms. Then we have this federal Senate is yesterday. I don't know what the final markup was, but the bill they considered would not require this kind of, first of all, it won't require Common Core, and second, it won't allow the Secretary of Education, unelected person that he is, to determine standards, and it will require states to have this punishment series. And then the last reason is this stuff hasn't worked. The commissioner's efforts to transform schools have had extremely mixed results. So I hope you will consider asking your legislators to sign on to this bill. And both Representative Morrill and I will be trying in the budget to do pieces that will support this agenda. So thank you so much for being here, and you're welcome to come and talk.
My name is Keiko Orwell. I'm from the 12th Bristol District, representing the communities of Lakeville, Middleborough, Berkeley, and Taunton. I want to thank you so much for being here. I'd like a show of hands to see if this is your first time here in the State House.
Oh,
That's
great.
Thank you so much for being here. We welcome you to to this place because this is your house, this is the people's house, and we need to have your opinions represented. Great time to bring this issue up. Today, the House Ways and Means budget will be released, and so there will be a lot of representatives, at least House representatives here in the building today, and so you have a good chance of meeting with your state representative to share your perspective. It's a good time because this can be stopped here in Massachusetts because we have not fully implemented the testing assessment, the park testing assessment. That decision will be made in the fall. And so that's where we do have the opportunity to at least change that piece of it and start to unravel this experiment, because I think it's time for the experiment to stop. So I appreciate that you're here, and also I just wanted to explain that there are people with differences of opinion, and in this building every day we interact with folks who are on totally different sides of an issue. So it's most important when you're interacting with people that you treat people with respect, that you understand that they're coming at it from a different perspective, and that they may have some things that you can learn from. What I find most compelling as a legislator, and we have people come in on all different types of issues, what I find most compelling is your personal story. Why are you opposed to Common Core? Why did you take a day off from work to be here today? Why did you bring your kids here today? What is the problem that you see? And so if you can just, in a nutshell, tell what your perspective is, that's more compelling, because Dr. Stotsky has great academic knowledge, but it's hard to take that all in. And so if you didn't catch everything, that's okay. Just share your perspective with your legislator, because we're just your neighbor. We're just people who happen to be elected to represent you. And so we value your perspective as just a regular person. So I want to thank you again for being here today. And if you have any further questions about legislation, the Senator did mention that we will be filing some amendments in the budget session. My focus has been for over a year and a half on the cost of the park testing. I believe that once that is unveiled to the Commonwealth, the overall cost of this huge experiment, that my colleagues will be, they'll be convinced that this is really not something that we should be doing at this time, because we do face severe budget constraints. So I have met with the commissioner multiple times to try to get that information. I've been given figures anywhere from 10 to 500,000 for each district. 10,000 to 500,000. That's pretty broad. So we're going to continue to try to get that information per district. So I want to know what is the cost going to be for the Freetown Lakeville School District to have all the hardware, to have the IT capability. I want to know what it's going to be the cost for the schools in the Berkshire. For those communities that don't have the informational technology ready, that don't have the computers that are available. So that's more of my focus. I know that there are other representatives who are going to be stopping by to share what their perspective is. But again, it's why are you here? And if you can just boil that down and be winning and compelling, I think that's where we win people with honey and vinegar, as they say. So thank you again for being here.
Segues right into our personal story. We do have a personal story here from Lee. He is a 6th grader at what school, Lee? Okay. And he is going to tell you his personal story here. He's going to share his personal story with you all. And then after that, I will open it up to questions. Will you be here to answer questions? Okay. For the representative and for Sandra. Okay, do we need to put the mic over here? Yeah. Okay, just hold on. This isn't really a mic. This is a mic for the camera. Okay. Just hold it. You have to speak loud.
Good morning. My name is Lee Kersey. I'm 12 years old and I'm in 6th grade. I've been going to school since I was 3 years old.
Mic's not on.
It's not. It's not. It's for the camera. It's not a mic. It's a fake mic. Screen.
Yes.
So far, that's 9 years old, 9 years of school. I've loved school since I was little. I got to make friends, do art projects, listen to music, had gym, reading, and math and science. My preschool was private, and I went there for 3 years. I missed my school when I started kindergarten in public school, but I was excited because having the school made me fun. My favorite subject was math, and I was already learning lots of it and was almost a strong reader by then. In public kindergarten, I was an excellent student and always got smiley faces or stars on my papers. I was very good at math and reading, and my reading was a lot better. I liked other stuff we did, but not as much as I loved math. In first and second grades, I continued to be a strong in math and reading. I began liking science a lot more too. In second grade, I started getting real marks on every report card. I was an honor roll student every time. I also started going to summer camp that year. School was fun and summer camp was fun too. By the time I wanted me to have to write a sentence about each step. It takes a long time to do, which is why all those steps don't change the answer. It's idiotic. I can't wait to get out of class every day. Sometimes I don't even do my homework. I just can't keep doing the same thing day after day after day. I want to learn new things. Math isn't fun anymore, neither is school. This year, for the first time in my life, I wasn't on honor. It's my own fault because I got home so bored and sick of the same thing every day. Why can't my teacher give me the things learned, not answer my questions, or just sort of give up? Since February vacation, we spend a lot more time thinking back to DOA things that would be on the test. When we read a book, we don't do book reports anymore. We do a racer sheet and analyze the story and characters. It takes all the fun out of reading and do this. Now DOA isn't fun anymore either. Except for my friends and some of my teachers and activities, school is boring. I don't want to be there anymore. I want to take to work and go to school so I can learn new things. My education is very important. At the end of fifth grade, I was given a presidential award of outstanding academic achievement as an honor student in advanced class. I have a teacher's nickname, so that's the first grade. I want that back again. I would like to be a veterinarian when I grow up. This means I have to get into college as early as I can get into. I need good grades and strong background in math and science to do this. I'm worried about that, and I want to mask it to beat the other kids to get into the kind of college I'm going to. I'm starting to get pretty mad about it. Concord is supposed to make all kids ready for college. It tries to make us all the same. I'm really good at basketball, but some kids aren't. Some kids are really good at being late, but some kids don't do as well. Everyone is not equal, but Concord tries to make us all the same in our system. And I'm upset about it. If I get upset because I have to wait for other kids to catch up, and I won't have to learn mistakes. My word is now take the attention and questions on what we were talking about. That means I got dropped this word and that I was really get hard to get into a good college. It won't be my fault if nobody teaches me, but I will get the consequences. I am not like everyone else. I like who I am. I just want to be me. People are not the same as me. Don't all like the same things. Why do schools usually need force us to be like robots and do the same things at the same time? It didn't used to be like that. I came here today because it's important for these people in this village to think of kids as people instead of filling servers in a piece of paper. I have plans for my future and I can't, so I can't get there when what teaches me what I need to know. I want to learn, I want to like school again. If you don't get out of the common core part, what chance do I have for the future? You gotta choose what you want to do with your life. You must not like what you're doing here when you wouldn't be here. I want the same opportunity to make my own choices and do what I want with my life. Are you listening to me? Can you say that the common core is really good to want to learn? Please just start this and do what's right. Not benefits. We're just kids who want to learn and grow up. Please help us. Let us decide who we want to be when we grow up. I thought I bored you in the last 5 minutes discussing so much about math. Just imagine how I feel. 40 minutes. Twice every day, 8 minutes. 5 days each week, 400 minutes a week. And no new math. I promise if you get rid of common core, I'll just
Outstanding. Thank you, Lee, for sharing that personal story, pulling it all together. And as he said, he needs his help. So I will open, I just have a few little things to discuss before we turn it over to some questions and answers. It's 10:30 now, so I'm going to let questions and answers go till about 1:15. And at that point, I want you, because we have many, where's Daniel? Is he here? Oh, he was going to help bring do the folders for me. At that point, we have many folders here that need to give to other state and senators, so I need you all to pick up an additional 5 folders at least up here. You just go to their room and there'll be talking points and go on. So let me just go over a few things and then I'll open it up to questions and answers. In your package, what you picked up, not in your package, but what you picked up on the table is lobby day instructions. So as you leave the building to go meet your state rep or your senator, because some of you already have appointments, so I thank you for that. I want you to also go by Governor Baker's room, which is room 360, and let him know how you feel, and Karen Polito, Lieutenant Governor Karen Polito. I know these people have appointments, so that's why they're walking up, and not because I'm boring or anything.
Although that has happened before.
Okay, that's happening. Okay, I know, I always have to give the details of everything. It's like, okay, we're ready to go out here and, kick butt, but okay, just have to wait 1 second. All right, also too important that, is that the new chairman of the Board of Ed has opened up 5 forums that will be throughout the Commonwealth on listening to our concerns on park exam and real-world impact of Common Core standards. These are the 5 dates. Please consider going to one or as many as you can get to. I did give you a list of the dates. I will have them up on our website, commoncoreforum.org, and it will be on our Facebook pages. And you can sign up to speak prior to the event itself. That's here. If you have any questions, come see me afterwards. The other thing is there will be other forums throughout the state coming up in April and May. I have them listed here also. I'm not going to bore you with all the dates, but I do have that. So now I will open up questions to, and please, after you go and you fill out your sheet, your reporting sheet of each legislator that you visited, I want you to bring this back to the room here before 12. So then I have a know what your legislator said. Are they going to support any of these bills? What are their feelings? Did you get to talk to him or the aide? Tell me what you think about Charlie Baker. Did you get to see him? Did you see the aide? But you all need to stop by Governor Baker's office. That is very, very, very important. All right, questions?
I think it might help us rookies if we can have you 2 role play just to give an example of what it would be like when we talk to our representatives.
Sure. Oh, we can go over that. So what you would do is you have your package in hand. Just quiet for a couple minutes. You have your package in hand. So I see that my representative, I'm going into her office. I see the door number, and sometimes there's multiple representatives in a office. So it may not just be Keiko, she may be in with other people. I see the receptionist, I say, hi, my name is Donna Caloria. I'd like to see my representative to see if she's in. Oh, I'm sorry, she's not here. So that would be the first case scenario. So I would say, is her aide around? Could I possibly speak to her? Are you with a group? Yes, I am here with Common Core Forum. I'd like to speak about Common Core or park testing. Okay, so you get to speak to the aide and you present the aide with the package and say, these are our concerns. There's some articles in here, and then, what is our real feelings? I really have no problem with Common Core. I don't like it because, and you give your reasons. And they don't have to be long reasons. You don't have to, have a PhD in this. You just have to have a couple of talking points. Now, if I get the honor of being able to speak to my rep because she's in between, maybe she's having lunch, and maybe she's, has the time to speak with me, I say, hi, Representative. My name is Donna Calorio. I'm in your district. Thank you for taking the time to meet with me.
Don, I only have like 10 minutes.
Okay, it's only going to take because I know you. I know. I have to tell you something. This was a real life story. How long ago?
I pushed her out the door, yeah.
How long ago?
2 years ago.
2 years ago. I went to see her, and I was insistent. We came up here on school committee lobby day, and we were lobbying our state rep. So I went up and I spoke to her, and I said, let me just give you a quick overview. I thank you for the time. 10 minutes is plenty of time. I have been in this district all my life. I have a family. I have kids in school right now. And to be honest with you, this whole thing with Common Core is not settling well with me. In the package itself, I have a lot of different interesting articles for you to read at your leisure. One of them in particular, these Okay. We have a fact sheet from Dr. Sandra Stotsky, and she lists all the different things of the valid, she was on the validation.
Don, I'm sorry to interrupt. Are there specifics, is there something you want me to do?
Yes. What I really want you to do.
No, I'm not one of my
This is
colleagues
really
in a
your
group
voice.
like this, and I apologize, but there could be this type of interaction because it is a very busy day, and we're primary on people's minds is the House Ways and Means Budget. So this is not really on.
So this is good that
So
you're
if
thinking
they
about
are
House and
rude,
Means
if they
Budget.
are rude to you, it's not. It's because we have a million different things going on, and if you could just let me know what do you want me to do?
I have 7 bills here that I really want you to consider. Have you considered them? Have you co-sponsored them? Would you be willing to speak about it later on? Here, I have this package. I really need to know, are any of these bills on your radar?
So would you like me to look at them and then possibly get back to you, get a check back on?
Well, I'd like to know right now if there's any of these bills.
Donnie, you gotta get a primer.
No, there's no money exchange. No, got you.
It was only $1.
So I think what would be helpful is that if you let the people know that you are a constituent from your district and you would like them to consider looking at the bills. It's most, if they're not familiar with the topic, it's really hard for people to give you an idea of whether or not they're supportive of it. And so they're just, a lot of them are just hearing for the first time. They don't have kids in the schools. They've been following it from the first week. They're interested in other issues. They're interested in transportation. Not everyone has this issue. I can't stress that enough. It's not that we don't, not that my colleagues don't care about education or care about this issue, it's because we're so very busy. So if you can just let them know that you're focused on this issue, you'd like for them to review it, and that you'll be following back up to see if they formed an opinion.
And the other thing too is I put together, since a lot of these bills have to deal with the park assessment, we put together 6 quick talking points. I forgot to put them up earlier. And this is the MCAS versus the park. If someone could just distribute this for me, that would be great. Thank you, Cindy. Okay, I have Representative Johnny Berthium here. He did, one of the bills is his, so I want him to speak briefly on the bill.
I got a okay. Thank you all for coming tonight. It's nice to see this great turnout. My bill is it gives parents the option to opt their kids out of park without penalty. As Keiko said, the most important thing you can do is contact your legislators. Public pressure is going to do a lot this time around with the Common Core park stuff. I have a 5-year-old in school and going through this Common Core math. I went to meeting with the Common School and I cannot figure it out. So I'm sure we all have the same concerns, but please pressure your legislator, talk to everybody you know.
I didn't say that.
I'm saying pressure your legislator.
I said time.
That's all right, we're all together working on this.
Phone calls and emails. More phone calls, more emails. If this issue is important to you, that tends to work.
Okay, and we have Representative.
I said pressure.
Okay,
Exactly.
Representative Julie's here
I'm going to
also.
say pressure.
Oh, sure. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm right there with Donnie. Pressure, a lot of calls, they need to hear from you. They do not, if your legislator does not hear from you, and does not hear in volume from you, and don't send a boilerplate email that you've cut and paste, because if you get 50 of those right in a row, it's harder for us to take them seriously, because they're like, this person does, it is, well, you might be able to take them seriously, it's harder for me to take it seriously, because it's the exact same thing over and over and over again. That means you don't care enough to spend 30 seconds of your time and tell me why this is important to you, why it's important to your children, why is it important to your community. If it's just a general blanket thing that I'm getting from everybody, whether it's in my district or out of my district, it's not as exciting. It doesn't touch me. It doesn't reach me. And I'm going to send back a boilerplate reply. Because that's, you send me a boilerplate, I give you a boilerplate return. You send me things that I can actually use in my arguments when I'm standing up there fighting this, fighting for you, fighting for your children. I need your information. I need as much as I can. I was chair of my school committee for 4 years. You know, we did the first opt-out of park during my tenure, and so I've been fighting this for a long time. But I need your help. I need you to make sure your representative knows. And it can't be ones and twos. It needs to be a consolidated effort. You know, don't blanket every single thing. Make a really good, passionate plea to your rep and to your senator so they know that it's important to you, it's important to your family. You know, have your wife or your husband write, have your neighbors write, and use real life examples. So thank you guys so much for coming out today. It's such an important mission. Get out there. We're all, you know, the House is all in session today, so we're all going to be here. I apologize, I can't stay because I'm on Ways and Means, so we're releasing the budget today. So.
And that one good talking point that Representative Dooley just said is they're doing House and Means, whatever.
Ways and Means.
Ways and Means.
For Means and Ways.
Cost. What is it going to cost? Pecos bill. What is it going to cost? Let's go with the cost. It's going. We don't know what it's going to cost. The cost is it's trademark, coming for us trademark. We are locked in. We have the high standards. Why are we spending more money for something we don't know is even going to work?
Talk to your superintendents about real costs. Because everyone's saying, Walpole has been great about this. The superintendent there actually walked through, met with his tech team, and figured out what it will actually cost the town. They already have the iPads. They're a wealthier town, so it wasn't as, you know, that initial number wasn't that big. But when you really started looking into it, what they had to do was replace the servers. They had to replace a lot of infrastructure. They had to do all of this information technology training for the staff. And so when he prorated that all out, because you can't have these kids taking a park test and then the system crashes because it's 10-year-old infrastructure. So they're going to have to replace all that. And now his cost on that alone, just to update it, to bring it up, is $1 million. That's not being discussed anymore. Everyone says, oh, well, you just need to buy a few iPads and share them between some classes. That's not the only cost. And so make sure you talk to them and have it, you know, don't get combative, just have you priced out all of this and actual man hours as well. You can't say, well, we already have the people, so it's not costing us anything, because they're taking time away from their other job. If they don't, they have all these extra people laying around that aren't doing anything, just waiting for Common Core, then they have too many people on their staff, and that's another issue.
Wait, okay, just a quick question for Representative Dooley.
I've got a quick question. Jamie Gass was at the forum that Sandra was at last Friday night. He made a statement, he represents the Pioneer Institute, that all we need is an executive order to be signed by Governor Baker to end all this. And why are we going that route?
You can ask Governor Baker when you go down to his
That's
office.
something everybody in this room should be asking.
I don't think it's that easy.
That, according to him, according to the Pioneer Institute, it could be done.
Yeah,
I think
there's a lot of unraveling with the race to the
It
top.
never went through the legislature. It was an act of the Department of Education. So.
I understand that. I just don't think it's quite that easy. But maybe it is.
But bring it up when you go down to see Governor Baker. Great question. All right. Do we have any other reps in the room that I'm not seeing? Okay. I didn't know someone was hiding that. I just don't want to. Okay. So now I'm going to open up to some questions and 15 minutes of questions, and then do not leave without picking up additional packages. I have about 100 here that need to be picked up. So you go see that door without a package, I'm going to track you down. So if you can raise your